Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney says he wants to get back to building. The federal government has set up a new major projects office in Calgary with a clear mandate: get major transformative projects built faster. The office started by announcing 5 projects, including a copper mine in east central Saskatchewan near Creighton. So today on the show, we'll learn more about this project and how a rise in AI is fueling a need for critical minerals. We'll connect with the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation to find out how they're training band members to fill jobs that will soon be available. And we'll also take a wider view of mining in the province to find out what the industry is doing to find workers to fill an estimated 15,000 jobs in the mining sector over the next decade. We turn it over to you as well. What do you make of the Prime Minister's nation-building plan? What do you see as the impacts here in Saskatchewan? And if you've worked in the mining industry, we would love to hear from you. Call 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. The list of nation-building projects includes 2 major copper mines, one in Saskatchewan and one in BC. Our national reporter, Alexander Silberman, has been following this story, and he's in our Regina studio to tell us a bit more. Alex, welcome.
Hi, Alicia. Good afternoon.
So let's step back just a bit. Tell us about these nation-building projects. We've been hearing a lot about this. What kinds of things were selected? What was the government looking for here?
Yeah, quite an interesting mix. So these 5 projects are on this initial list with more to be added of large-scale infrastructure projects the federal government wants to get off the ground quickly and get to the finish line. They're the start of this larger list being sent to this newly created Major Projects Office, a new office created by the federal government, which aims to cut down on red tape and try and find ways to speed things up for these priority projects. So the ones that are on this initial list are all energy, resource projects, focused on trade as well, that are designed to build out national infrastructure, energy, and find ways to quickly boost the Canadian economy. Ottawa claims that they'll generate more than $60 billion combined for the economy. The list includes a range of projects. Some are expected, ones that people thought might be on there, like you have the expansion of the Kitimat, BC liquefied natural gas plant, a very large project. But there are a couple of surprises on there, which were these 2 massive copper mines. You have the Red Chris mine in northwestern BC. This is an existing mine that the government wants to support in expanding to mine copper. And you also have the McIlvanna Bay Foran copper mine right here in Saskatchewan.
So why do you think, or what have you heard about why this project in northeastern Saskatchewan got chosen?
Well, the inclusion of 2 copper mines in particular, like this one here in Saskatchewan, is a strong signal that the federal government is looking to turn things around and turn Canada into a major global producer. Canada doesn't produce a ton of copper at the moment, but demand for the base metal right now is soaring around the world and is climbing quite a bit. We heard Prime Minister Carney say these 2 mines will help strengthen Canada's position as a global supplier of critical minerals that are needed for clean energy and manufacturing. And this mine here in Saskatchewan, the McIlvanna Bay project, it's an entirely new mine, which is very rare for copper mines and mines in general in Canada. Typically, we see more expansions of existing mines because there's high risk when you're building a mine. It takes extensive time to get the permitting in place. Construction can take years, and commodity prices fluctuate so much. But this is an entirely new mine. It's massive in scale. That's something that stands out and likely helped to get on this list. It's also getting very close to completion. This is very close to the finish line. The permitting is in place. Construction is well underway at the moment, and it's expected to start commercial production in the middle of next year. So we're just months away from people actually being able to go out, apply, and get jobs to work at that mine as it's running. So this is a big project, very close to being done, definitely made it stand out for the federal government. And the hope is that getting projects like this one across the finish line will help very quickly turn around Canada's copper industry, which, if you look back at the numbers for production for recent years, it's actually been in decline. Canada has seen a 25% decline in production over the past decade. So now we're seeing there's a big effort to catch up.
Interesting story, interesting backstory there to all of this. So what kind of reaction have we heard so far from local communities?
So there was a little bit of pushback in BC to that Red Chris mine expansion. There's a nearby First Nation that has some concerns over the risk to the environment. But the reaction I've heard so far in the Creighton area here in Saskatchewan has largely been positive, as well as across the border in Flin Flon, Manitoba, about 5 minutes away. There's a lot of excitement. So this mine has been generating 800 jobs during the construction phase. That's 800 people currently working there. And it's expected to create 450 direct permanent jobs once that mine is up and running at the middle of next year. So that's a big boost to the local economy and what we're talking about, a remote region with a pretty small population. So a lot of jobs to fill. I spoke with the president of the Flin Flon Chamber of Commerce, who told me it's very welcome news. He says nothing can really replace the role of the mining sector in the local economy there, at least at this point in time. And it will allow for people to stay in the area and maintain the population and even grow the population. So very welcome news there. Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, like you mentioned earlier, which has several communities near the mine, they're also on board with this project, and they signed an agreement to collaborate on economic development with Foran, the company behind the mine, and create some training programs to allow people in their community to benefit from this, get jobs there, and be able to grow their careers.
Okay, the big question now is the copper that's being mined. What is it going to be used for? Why is there such a demand for it?
Exactly. So for quite a few things, there's this existing demand for copper. Copper is used as a conduit to carry and conduct electricity. So you have a big demand for it to begin with, just for the expansion of electrical grids as towns and cities keep growing across the world. But the big driver right now creating this massive surge in demand for copper is artificial intelligence, because all of these AI data centers that are being built to contain the servers needed for AI, they need a lot of copper wiring as they get constructed. And with the speed and scale of artificial intelligence development that we're seeing now, the demand for copper has just been taking off. And then in addition to that, you also have the growth of demand for copper in the manufacturing of electric cars for the batteries. And there's a lot of demand for copper for military uses as well. So all of these different industries that are growing, competing to try and get their hands on copper, it's making the price go up quite a bit. And we do know that copper demand is projected to keep growing rapidly over the next few years, quite likely over the next decade. But when you talk to people in the mining industry, everyone is warning that the reality of the slow timeline to just get the permits to build a mine, you're talking about years and years before a mine can actually open. Some cases it can take more than a decade, means that there's really no way the industry will be able to catch up in the short term, and we're looking at a pretty big looming supply crunch.
Okay, I just learned a lot from you, Alex. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
That's Alexander Silverman, our national reporter with CBC, who is based in Regina. Now, Jonathan French is Vice President, Capital Markets and External Affairs with Foran Mining Corporation. It is the company responsible for this copper and zinc mine in East Central Saskatchewan. And he joins us on the line now. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So it's the McIlvanna Bay copper and zinc mine that we're talking about. Tell us a bit more about it. How long has the construction been taking place? How long has it been in the works now?
Yeah, we like to kind of joke that it's a 30-year overnight success story. So McIlvanna Bay was discovered back in 1988. However, really a lot of the work that's been done on the permitting and financing front has really happened in the last 3 or 4 years. So we received our environmental permits to build the asset back in July of 2023. But before we even announced that, we announced our collaboration agreement with the Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation, because we believe really to truly have if you don't have a social license or social acceptance, you don't have a business. And it's really important for us to get that right first before you go ahead and build this asset. So we announced our formal construction decision in July of 2024 of last year, and we are currently 50% complete on construction, and with commercial production expected in the middle of next year. We finance that through a whole host of debt and equity. We have some significant shareholders, including Fairfax Financial, which is a 23% shareholder, Agnico Eagle, as well as a 13.5% shareholder, as well as some other larger institutional investors globally that allowed us to fund it on the equity side, as well as the debt. And really, it's a $1 billion project that we're building, and we're ready to get this into production next year.
So what difference does it make to have the federal government fast track some of the final things? So to be on this list of nation-building projects, what does that mean for the mine?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities, or some similarities with all projects on these lists, is that they are going ahead and looking to come into production or have some vision on growth for the economy in the near term. From our perspective, it's less on the initial kind of the permitting front, since we're fully permitted at the stage. It's really focused on policy and applicability of certain policies and amendments that can help assets get into production. So, for example, we've had support from the federal government with the Critical Minerals Infrastructure Fund, as well as Sustainable Innovation Fund, as well as an investment from the Canada Growth Fund earlier this year. But there's also another few initiatives that the government is working on, such as the investment tax credits that can help critical minerals mining and get those up and running, which are key components to get things through to production, but also make sure that it's a sustainable mine for the future.
So will this help things move along more quickly? I guess that's the question, or the heart of the question that I'm trying to get at here is just, how much does this speed things up for you to be on that list?
From a construction perspective, it doesn't speed anything up. We're going as fast as we can, and we have the financing in place to get the build done. What it does is ensure that this mine will succeed and we can get this into production and ramp up to our nameplate capacity as quickly as possible. That's really the key focus here. And I think what it also does is showcases to private capital globally that Canada is supporting the upstream component of a lot of these industries that is so critical and something that's been overlooked, I think, over the last decade or two.
Okay, so we heard from Alexander there that there has not been a lot of pushback from Saskatchewan residents to this mine, but I think one of the overarching concerns is that when people hear that things might be speeding up, they're worried that some regulations may be softened, and there are, environmental concerns that end up being raised. I'm just wondering how you might address that. Do you see those conversations taking place? And if you could find an entry point to share your piece, what would you say? I have a feeling that you're not able to hear my audio for a second there. And now I'm not hearing you. You know what we'll do, Jonathan? Let's just pause, you and I, for a second, because I have somebody else in studio with me who can probably answer this question. So we'll come back to you, Jonathan, once you're able to troubleshoot some of the technology there. No big deal. We've got lots of time to get into all of this. But next to me is someone who's very familiar with mining in Saskatchewan, Pam Schwan. She's in our Saskatoon studio, president of the Saskatchewan Mining Association. We're saying hello to you a little bit earlier, but welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Alicia.
I'll put that same question to you. It's one I was going to ask you anyway, but there are often concerns raised when people hear a project is getting greenlit faster than maybe first anticipated. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, first I want to compliment Alexander on his overview. It was excellent. He took a lot of my speaking notes from me. But anyway, I think as Jonathan's already alluded to, this mine is fully permitted. It's undergone the environmental assessment review already. There will be annual mine licenses and other things that it will be subject to, but it's not going to fast track, is a term that I've heard being used. It's not going to fast track any regulatory approvals. The mining sector is robustly regulated at a provincial level, which I think most people maybe forget, but they are our primary regulators with the Environment Department, and also federally, particularly on the uranium side. So this is not going to fast track approvals for this project. It's already well underway, but like Jonathan mentioned, it will help align some of the policies, and it's a complex federal system in terms of some policies maybe not being as efficient as possible, and it'll help get that alignment together.
Because there now is an office dedicated to focus on these projects specifically.
Correct.
Also, picking up on what Jonathan said, that it sends a signal to investors, it sends a signal to the world that Canada has copper and we're mining it, we're open for business. What do you see as the signal that this sends?
Yeah, I think this is a really positive signal. We spent the last decade with the question from the federal government being, well, why should this proceed? And you heard Prime Minister Carney very clearly saying it's not why, it's how are these going to proceed, which is a very similar mindset to our provincial government regulators. It's if it's meeting regulatory approvals, then it's how can we get this approved, not, should it be approved or what's the benefit. So the signal is important. It shows that we want to get our resources developed in a responsible manner and out to our trading partners, because I think people need to realize that Canada and Saskatchewan in particular are trading nations. We don't produce these materials for really our own benefit. We are very much in the global marketplace, and that requires us being reliable producers and timely, efficient, predictable producers. And so having the federal government recognize this, recognize that their own review process is inefficient, and I think Prime Minister Carney said that it actually is a deterrent to investment. Having that shift in mindset is really important. We have the resources, we have the technology, we are among the world's most sustainable producers of pretty much any mineral commodity. And so this finally sends a signal that Canada is ready to meaningfully produce our critical minerals.
Okay, and we'll talk to you about some of the other critical minerals. There's lots to get to with you, Pam, so stay put. Don't go anywhere. We do have Jonathan French back with us. And in a moment, we'll hear from Gary Morasti, too, who's CEO of Peter Ballantyne Group of Companies. Jonathan, hi.
Yes, I
You're
think
here.
we're back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam, for pinch hitting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you a little bit about job creation. We'll hear more from Gary Morasti on that too, but why don't you, Jonathan, fill us in on the types of jobs that this mine will be creating?
Yeah, so we are going through construction right now. Like Alex was mentioning, over 800 people on site building this asset. But long term, we're going to be having over 450 jobs. Over these are over multi-decades. This asset's going to be going for. So you have underground miners, you have people that you need in the milling facilities, people to make sure that everything in the equipment, mechanics, is everything is going according to plan. People maintaining site as well. It's really a whole host of industrial jobs, from soup to nuts. So it's something that we're excited to be building in a remote region of northeastern Saskatchewan, and then really building up the economy in the region.
And can you build on what we already heard from Alexander about what will be mined at the site and what it will be used for? I mean, my ears perked up when I heard about artificial intelligence.
Yes. Yeah. So at site, we will be producing not just copper, but also zinc, which is also a critical mineral element, and gold and silver. And how it works is our site will be producing a concentrate, both the copper and zinc concentrate. And think of it as kind of like a black sand. It's kind of the initial stage of getting towards a copper cathode. It's then shipped across country, and then it goes to a smelter where it's smelted down into copper cathode or zinc ingots. And those will be used for a whole host of different industries, whether it's infrastructure, electric vehicles, AI, as you mentioned, but it's really a growing use of copper demand. And on the zinc side, it's galvanizing steel and obviously defense spending as well.
What support are you getting from the government of Saskatchewan, Jonathan?
We have a great relationship with the Saskatchewan government. We announced last week that there was a $70 million investment tax credit that we were awarded or approved for as part of this new critical minerals program they've outlined, as well as some opportunities to support on the infrastructure side. So we are producing, or we're going to be constructing a hydro line, that's tying our project into the Island Falls facility. And we're working with them to get that up and running as well. So, for that being said, it's been a great relationship. I mean, Saskatchewan, everyone seems to know anyone, but everyone's a hard worker. It is ranked the best jurisdiction in Canada for mining investment, and we're seeing that on a daily basis.
And the other thing that we've heard in response to the development that we're seeing in Saskatchewan and across the country when it comes to mining, the federal government says that our mines could become a blueprint for responsible and sustainable mining. There are people listening who would push back on that a bit, and some might say, well, how can it be environmentally friendly, especially if you have to disturb land or habitat of plants and animals? So I'm wondering what you're doing that would illustrate what the federal government has suggested, that we could become a blueprint for responsible and sustainable mining.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from the start, our mine is an underground operation. So you go under a decline and as well as a shaft. So from a surface disturbance, it's not like an open pit where you have to move people or vegetation. A lot of it is really just focused underground. So from a surface disturbance, it's significantly less than you would have with an open pit. We're also utilizing battery electric vehicle fleets. So underground, we're using both scoops and trucks and our jumbo fleet. Everything you need to operate a mine will be used with battery electric vehicle fleets. We have charging bays underground that you can replace the batteries on these units, and trying to use new technologies that are in mining but haven't really been used from day one to improve the mine. Tangentially with that is when you have a battery electric vehicle underground, you don't have as much diesel particulate in the air. You don't have exhaust from diesel generators or diesel trucks. So your ventilation needs are actually significantly less than you need. So once again, your footprint or your energy need to heat these mines for people to operate in is also reduced. That including when it comes to power, let's say. Power is generally 2/3 of your GHG emissions in a mining operation. So using renewable hydropower, which we're hoping to use with tying into the Island Falls hydro facility, will alleviate a lot of those GHG emissions over time as well. So it's really something that we want to create some type of sustainable future for mining. At the end of the day, we need mining. Everything we use or touch or feel has either been farmed or mined, and people need to understand that these industries need to continue. There's a great quote saying that if we want to reduce our GHG footprint, we need to increase our mining footprint. And the only way to really do that is to do it in a sustainable way, and also get newer, younger generation of individuals into mining. We want Foran to kind of be that the Google or the Facebook of the mining world, where a lot of new people want to come into mining and try to make a difference from the top down.
I'm Leisha Grabinski. You are listening to Blue Sky. We've got a few people on the show today talking about Saskatchewan's mining sector. We've got Jonathan French, who's Vice President, Capital Markets and External Affairs with Foran Mining Corporation. Sitting next to me, if I have her title in front of me, Pam Schwan. Pam, President, Saskatchewan Mining Association. And next you'll hear from Gary Morasti, who is CEO of Peter Ballantyne Group of Companies. But before we say hello to Gary Morasti, Jonathan, I want to know what your company is doing to recruit workers and also to make sure there are enough people in Saskatchewan to fill those jobs, or if you're looking elsewhere to fill those positions. So fill us in on that front.
Yeah, it's tough to find good labor. I think everyone's having this challenge, and we're no different. Our focus is always about making sure that we employ as many as we can from Saskatchewan and our local Indigenous groups as well. So that's something that we've always been a focus and paramount for us. I think we're about 40 or 50% of our employment rate is with residents of Saskatchewan North or within Saskatchewan. And we want to continue to grow that long term. So in the meantime, as we build this asset out, we have 800 people, like I said, on site. Half of them are not from Saskatchewan, but it's something that I think when we look at filling in those long-term positions, focusing on people close to the mine site is our focus and priority. So I think we have if people ever want to look, please go to our website, foranmining.com/careers and see what kind of jobs that we have opening. Every single day there's a new 10 or 15 more jobs. So have a look, and we'd love for people to join when they can.
One last quick question. If only half are from Saskatchewan, where are the others coming from? Like where in the world is this expertise that you need right now?
Predominantly from Canada. So we have people from other parts of the country, even out St. John's, Newfoundland. We have people coming Ontario, Quebec, BC, you name it. But majority of them are Canadians. We really want to make this mine we're a company, we're owned by Canadians, we're building it for Canada, and we want it to be built by Canadians. So that's really something we've been focusing on.
Okay, well, it's been really good talking to you today, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate it.
That's Jonathan French, VP with the Foran Mining Corporation. Now, one of the places where the mine is hoping to source workers is from Ballantyne Cree Nation. Gary Morasti is CEO of Peter Ballantyne Group of Companies. It's the investment arm of that First Nation. Gary Morasti, no stranger to politics and how big projects get built. He's a former Liberal Member of Parliament for Disnethi, Missinippi, Churchill River in northern Saskatchewan, a former two-time Grand Chief of the Prince Albert Grand Council, and he joins us right now. Gary Morasti, welcome to Blue Sky.
Hi, how are you? And hi to everybody on the call.
Yeah, it's good to have you today. So, first off, why don't you explain how Peter Ballantyne is involved in this mining project?
Well, as Jonathan mentioned, the band's been familiar with this property for decades. You've had Cameco, BHP, and others involved in it, and it takes a long, long time to develop a mine, as you talked about in your opening comments. I think 1 in 3 to 5,000 from exploration actually get to a producing mine. So we've watched with interest as a nation the activity around this site, but also surrounding us with Hut Bay being nearby, Cameco being nearby, CB mine. So as a First Nation, we've been focused on understanding what has been happening around us. So as the Foran site developed, Foran reached out early to the Chief of the Council and started, attending community meetings and that, and starting the process of having a discussion on what's called an impact benefit agreement, collaboration agreement, partnership agreement. And so the engagement with the Cree Nation and the Chief and Council started fairly early, before a lot of the ground disturbance advanced too far. And that, so that's kind of how they got involved, and through the negotiations ended up coming to an agreement on an impact benefit agreement to support the mine.
And how many members do you hope end up working at the mine? Members who get jobs at the mine?
It's just to kind of share a bit of a story. So we it was interesting because as a group of companies, we intentionally stayed away from the resource sector because many of our partners in and around the area, from Kitsaki Development Corporation, Athabasca Group of Companies, were involved in the resource sector. And as a group of companies ourselves, we went into property and retail and gas stations and hotels. But once the Foran property at McIlvanna Bay started to advance, we pivoted and started up a greenfield industrial division. And with the hopes of hiring and training Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation members, but also to establish a supply chain of businesses that would support that mine, that would require our services. So we focused on that, and so 2.5-3 years ago we set up Atuski Industrial. Atuski in Cree is a Cree word that means work together, and then we have it spelled A2 SKI, and so we pivoted. Now, a lot of our team members and myself, I've worked in the mining industry for a long time. And so we were able to pivot fairly quickly, get this greenfield business up and running. And during the negotiations with Foran, because a mine is not a mine until it's producing its intended ore body. And so we negotiated with Foran with the goal of establishing life of mine types of services that have the potential to actually employ and train people to fill the roles there, as opposed to one-off construction projects that can be ramp up for a bit and then end after 18 months. So instead, we do focus on some of that, but our primary focus was on identifying services and goods that the mine would need for the life of the operation.
So maybe give me an example, like maybe get really specific, one job. Yeah, I'm curious.
So one of them is the camp catering and housekeeping, for example. So we you need to feed and house the work crews there, the miners, the individuals building the camp. So we have a life of mine objective and goal to establish this catering company. And so that's been established in housekeeping. So we've got over 20 PBCN band members employed on that, and that'll ramp up over time.
So that's really, I just want to jump in for a second, because that's really interesting. I think when we set out to do a show about mining, most of the jobs we're thinking about would be, or I was assuming, underground. And here you're talking about cooking jobs and housekeeping and how important that is to support the work that's happening at the mine.
Yeah, and another example is our MRO type of site services construction work. So the work at the site, the small C construction to, trenching, building small buildings, all that kind of stuff. Usually you need a construction company at a site to be able to be responsive to any and all capital needs a mine may need. And so we are there ready at a drop of a phone call. Hey, we need something done. Could your industrial team mobilize to provide that service to us? And so we've got that as a second life of mine type of example. And the other one is diamond drilling. Exploration is so critically important to the long-term sustainability of mining that you have to build this resource ahead of your mining. And so diamond drilling and exploration activity is a key component. So that is the other life of mine type of activity we've negotiated in this. And you mentioned underground mining. We do have partnerships with the underground miner right now and I think Foran, and Jonathan can elaborate, but are going to self-perform the underground mining potentially. So we do want and will engage with Foran on training underground miners as well for the long term. But when you count all the numbers together, just to give you an example, to date, we know for a fact we've employed over 120 PBCN members, virtually starting from zero to 120 PBCN members employed in these different opportunities that I mentioned, the services. And it does go up and down. The camp started with a couple hundred people. Now they're ramping up to 800. It'll go down to 450. So employment will fluctuate slightly. Diamond drilling will fluctuate. But so we're tapping into as many PBCN members as we can through this process.
You've created such an interesting visual, almost like a spider web, right? Where you've got like Foran in the middle and then all of the supporting companies and workers that stem from that. What about, though, getting people from Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation into the high-paying jobs at a company like Foran? Like, what track is there work being done to help with that?
Yeah, that's always top of mind as well. Some of the higher-paying jobs you're referring to will require engineering training or even legal, accounting. There's so many other careers in there. And if we look at some of the best examples in Saskatchewan, you're starting to see that, and I've seen that develop with Cameco over 50 years of mining. And it can take a bit of time to develop that capacity, provide that training. So taking best practices from that, we're having regular engagement meetings with Foran to identify future opportunities. Part of this and why the early identification and support of the 5 projects mentioned is important. I talked about a mine's not a mine till it's producing. Mm-hmm. The closer we get to producing, the more definitive your plans can become. And the more serious your investment in people, in business, for goods and supply and services becomes. And so with the mine taking this potential next step, and it is largely there, as Jonathan mentioned, it just brings home the ability to do much stronger strategic planning to not only train and employ people, but create these businesses that create wealth, that provides further employment, not just as employees of Foran. And the 120 I mentioned are just PBCN working for our businesses at PBGOC. It's not counting how many may be working Foran right now.
Before we go to Pam, I just want to ask you a couple questions about the pushback that we often see when projects are either they're in the early development stages or they're close to completion. And I think it's important to point out that the federal government has an Indigenous advisory board that includes 2 people from Saskatchewan to address concerns that come up from First Nations and Métis communities when a development is nearby and could affect traditional lands and whatnot. Gary, how do you see yourself as part of those conversations? What could we learn from someone like you who's been in this industry for so long and you're well aware of the larger conversations that tend to take place when mining comes up?
Well, I think the important thing to realize is to keep First Nation issues at the forefront. It can be challenging to keep that on the front burner, and keeping governments, mining companies, organizations that support mining to keep the focus on Indigenous engagement. It naturally ebb and flows a bit, but it takes a lot of work to keep everybody focused on what we need to see from Indigenous people being engaged properly. And you, at the start of your show, you talked a lot about Flin Flon and Creighton, but what sometimes gets lost in these discussions is, well, what about Deschambault? What about Sandy Bay, Denair Beach, Sturgeon Landing, Pelican Arrows, who are huge supporters of Flin Flon and Creighton and spend a lot of their wealth and revenue there, but the impact on PBCN also is quite significant, and the impact of PBCN on communities like Flin Flon, Creighton, and PEA are also important, and on the province of Saskatchewan and on the federal government, right? So sometimes we don't talk much about that, and it's sometimes lost in discussion.
I appreciate that. I just keep coming up with more questions. I will get to Pam in just a second, but is there something different happening in Saskatchewan? Because also at the start, I pointed out that the copper mine in BC has had a bit more pushback from a nearby First Nation community there, and we aren't seeing that same pushback here in Saskatchewan. Is there something different in how this is unfolded in this province compared to other places?
I think what I'd have to say to that is Saskatchewan has a long mining history, and I think Saskatchewan was a leader in Canada in reaching out to First Nation Métis people, and then from that engagement, you're seeing success in establishing First Nation and Métis-owned businesses, providing services to the mining companies, whoever it may be. Foran's going to be there, and they've taken great steps to ensure that with the IBA and the life of mine type of projects we're talking about. But you turn your eye to Cameco, or you turn your eye to CB, you turn your eye to the potash industry, you've seen engagement from those mines go back 30, 50 years. And I think that is probably what's given us kind of a foot up or a hand up in it. Not a handout, it was really a hand up in that everybody understood the importance of that. You look at Cameco, and it's in a remote northern location with communities, First Nation Métis communities nearby, and they reached out and built that capacity. And so it's served as a bit of a template for the other mining companies, and it certainly is. From my experience watching across Canada over the last 30 years, Saskatchewan has been a leader in doing that. Is it perfect? No, there's always room for improvement. And I think that's the thing that also differentiates us, is we're not satisfied with just where we're at. It's where do we keep going from here?
Perfect segue to Pam. Gary Morasti, thank you so much for your time today.
Yep, you're welcome.
Gary Morasti is CEO of Peter Ballantyne Group of Companies. You can call us if you work in the mining industry. We would like to hear from you today, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email us your thoughts, bluesky@cbc.ca. Pam Schwan, who's been waiting patiently, is president of the Saskatchewan Mining Association. You've been listening and nodding and taking notes and all of that. Pam, just what's top of mind for you at this moment?
Oh, you covered such a lot of great topics there. I think what's top of mind is, particularly just having spoken with Gary, is this is a real opportunity for Peter Ballantine Cree Nation and the communities in the area because they are the closest communities. The Flin Flon mining camp started in 1914, and it was the old style where people came, set up town, lived around the mine. We've moved away from that now, and that's why it's so important. Not just because it's traditional territory of Peter Ballantine Cree Nation, but because they are the closest communities. And really having Indigenous people and businesses involved in the mining operations is how, they are your strongest advocates because there's not a lot of opportunity for economic activity in the region that goes all year round. And this will provide safe, high-paying jobs in a variety of occupations to people that haven't had that opportunity before. And so it's really exciting from that perspective. It will be a challenge on the training side. I know that SIIT has done some programming up in Pelican Narrows area on heavy equipment operators, that they had a course that graduated last year. I can see more of those happening, moving forward as people need to be trained safely to go work in an industrial environment. But, this is just the start, really, and we need to keep that focus. We need to keep the focus on having kids in school become more aware of career opportunities in the mining sector, whether it's in trades, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in finance. There's so many occupations, but the key is really ensuring kids are aware of opportunities in school and that they stay in school.
And can all of that schooling be done in Saskatchewan? Would there be jobs where you'd have to go out of province for a particular type of training?
No. They can all be done. We've got great training institutions. I mentioned SIIT, Northlands College in northern Saskatchewan as well. We've got, Sask Polytechnic with various campuses, Gabriel Dumont Institute, and then for some of the more what we would call mining-specific jobs in engineering, we've got U of S, we've got U of R. So we have all the institutions that we need. We have some very innovative training methods that are happening right now. I can mention Morris Interactive is doing training. They've done training for Mosaic, going into First Nations communities. They've just finished a project with NextGen. We've got our own companies doing innovative training. Cameco just finished a training program at their Rabbit Lake site that's in sort of care and maintenance, but for looking at trades, because that's one of the key occupations that we are going to need are lots of people in various trades, industrial mechanics, heavy-duty mechanics, electricians, but we are not attracting enough students in the high school system or even the secondary system in the K-8 to be aware of opportunities or to really get them interested in occupations and
trades. Is
trades.
that a shortfall of the industry, or are young people just pursuing interests that aren't that? Like, what do you think is behind that?
There's a lot of things that are behind that. There's not a lot of opportunity in the K-12 system right now to have students get their hands in a trades environment. Really anymore. We have, a lot of focus on, what does success mean? And we have a lot of people that feel that you're only successful if you go to a university, not into a technical training program. And as we look at what we need to be doing in Canada and Saskatchewan in terms of building, it's trades that we really need to focus on and give the respect that is due to people that are working in the trades about what a valuable part of our economy they are.
How is the industry doing when it comes to recruiting women?
Honestly, not very well. About 14% of our workforce is comprised of women. So if you look at other sectors, we are behind. One area that we've done a pretty good job in is actually on women engineering. We see those numbers going up. They're still not high enough. One area that we really need to work on is women in trades. And so we see people or institutions like Sask Poly have a Women in Trades and Technology. It's sponsored by Arano, one of our companies. And Girls in Trades and Technology, giving that exposure to girls in trades who might not otherwise have that opportunity at different camps. And Sask Apprenticeship and Trade Certification Committee are doing a lot more work in the youth space as well. And so they are other natural partners for us to work more closely with. And we're looking at anything that we can do to support that, we'd be interested in following up on.
And when it comes to youth, you were telling our producer that there was a teacher in Saskatoon who was trying to teach a mining class but was struggling to get enough students?
Right. Well, the way things work, it's my understanding, is that really to offer a course in high school, you need to have enough students interested in the class, which makes sense. But if you don't have enough in one school that are interested in taking that course, the teacher is not able to offer that. So I'm just going to give a shout out to Jonathan Schwanke, who is the teacher in question. And so what we see is that even if students are interested, there's not always the opportunity. Through the Distance Learning Center education system now, we're looking at how we can work more closely with them because they're able to draw in and attract students from any place in Saskatchewan to take courses that might be of interest. So they're not limited or this class size isn't a barrier anymore. And so we are hopeful that that actually will help attract more students.
And is there some work to do to convince the public? I remember several months ago this came up and we did a show on schools partnering with industry. And sometimes the reaction to that is, hold on, like education, what are we doing partnering with industry? And so is there some work to do on that end to convince the public that this is valuable education?
Probably. There's a lot of opportunities in a variety of ways, but I think people need to understand, you don't go a day without needing not just one thing, but probably hundreds of things that have been produced from mining, and understanding even the jobs that are available. Not all jobs are underground. Some people love working underground. Once they're down underground, they love it. I love being underground in a potash mine, 1,000 feet, 1,000 meters underground. Other people like working on surface, but like Gary alluded to, the occupations are not just more industrial. There's opportunities in financing, there's opportunities in HR, and pretty much any job, journalism you can think about, communications, marketing, are tied into the mining sector. And so there's lots of opportunity. We probably need to do a better job in communicating all those career opportunities and just what a career maybe in an industrial setting is like, and also the very strong safety record of the Saskatchewan mining sector. Our WCB premium rates are below the all-average industry rate. You're safer working at a mine site than you are working in government. That is based on those numbers. And it's not that our sites aren't inherently dangerous. It's just that we take a lot of time and effort in making sure that the activities are conducted in a safe manner.
Just as we wrap up here, I want to circle back to what we're mining. And obviously the focus today has predominantly been on copper, although we've talked about Cameco, uranium. We know that's important. What is next for Saskatchewan? I think a lot of people were wondering, well, we're talking about a critical mineral, copper, but there's a lot of emphasis on rare earth minerals. So what might be next when it comes to what we're mining here in Saskatchewan?
Well, I think we need to probably keep a look at lithium. Lithium prices are highly variable, and I think right now they're depressed a little bit with the electric vehicle mandate in a bit of question. But we have a really innovative way of looking at extracting lithium from brines in southern Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan Research Council is doing amazing work on the rare earth element processing side. The world needs rare earth elements in pretty much everything we do, but we are horribly reliant on China as the global producer of that. And so we really need another stable global producer that won't restrict supply for everything we need, from computer chips to pretty high-tech applications. So SRC is actually world leading in the work they are doing right now, and not just from a Saskatchewan perspective or Canadian perspective, but really global perspective. So
for processing.
For processing, right. We do have rare earth element deposits in Saskatchewan. Extremely hard to develop because they tend to be fairly small, and they have to be vertically integrated into production, which is not something other commodities necessarily have to do. We have, I think, with gold prices where they are right now, very attractive, record highs, $3,500, I think, U.S. an ounce. I think we're going to see more gold production happen. Right now, we've got the CB mine as our sole gold producer. But more in the Larange area where we've had historical gold production, and even on the North Shore, Lake Athabasca. I think we've also got potential for a graphite deposit that's being explored for right now, again, used in battery manufacturing.
We have a lot.
We have
Even
a lot.
if we don't have rare earth minerals being mined right now, we've got a lot going on here in Saskatchewan.
We have a real diversity of commodities. We have exploration companies that are every year raising money. $400 million in exploration is spent every year looking for new deposits. We have an investment attraction, our province that has really strong investment attraction. And so, the sky's the limit.
We'll talk again, I'm sure, Pam. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
That is Pam Schwan, president of the Saskatchewan Mining Association. I'm Alicia Gravinsky. You've been listening to Blue Sky.